Okay, everybody, and welcome to today's podcast, where we're very, very delighted to be speaking to Captain Pradeep Chawla, who is very much a familiar face to many of us in the shipping industry. Captain Chawla retired on the 30th of June 2023 from his position as MD of Group QHSE, and training after 31 years with Anglo-Eastern Ship Management. But during his career, he's been very much a thought leader in the fields of training, safety, health and quality assurance. He was also very much instrumental in setting up training centres in Mumbai, Delhi, Manila, Odessa and Shenzhen through his time at Anglo-Eastern. And he was a pioneer in adopting e-learning and setting up an online learning management system in 2006, and was a pioneer in adopting simulator training before that, and adopting virtual reality training in 2015. He serves, apart from being CEO and founder of Maritime Knowledge, a body in which MarinePALS, a unit, sits within. He also serves as chairman of Global Met, which is an association of training centres around the world. Global Met also has a seat at the IMO as an NGO. And he has served in committees of various industry associations such as Intertanko, Nautical Institute, BIMCO, Standard P&I Club, and the Hong Kong Shipping Consultative Committee. And he really brings together, his passion for contributing to safety and accident prevention through education and training. Pradeep, it's a pleasure to talk to you today, and welcome to the podcast. Just really wanted, first of all, just to get your good evening, sir, and just to really get your perspective on the way that the needs in the training industry is changing and has changed, and why it sort of culminated in the setting up of MarinePALS, and what MarinePALS is going to be bringing to the industry.
Okay, I think the way all of us in the society are getting affected by the various new channels of media, it is changing the way we absorb knowledge. I think reading out from fat textbooks is a thing of the past. Most youngsters, research shows, are having ability to learn better as audiovisual learners. And this has been found out in research for many years, that all of us are liking the medium of video especially, and that was the reason for the success of YouTube. And in fact, you might notice that a lot of youngsters now do not use Google for searching. They go to YouTube for searching for a video on whatever subject they want to research. And there is a general apathy towards reading a lot of text. I mean, probably all the religious books in all the religions are no longer very popular because they have no pictures in them. So the span of attention of individuals is also kind of reducing because there's too many demands. We had 2 news channels 25 years ago in every country, and we probably have 2,000 of them in every country now. And the media comes at us not only from the mainstream, but from all the social media channels. And this reduces our span of attention. We all want instant headlines, breaking news. And these habits that are there are kind of making us attached to our mobile phones. It's almost like an extension of the hand. And someday someone might probably think of embedding a screen in our palms of our hands. So noticing that the change is happening in the way people are learning, this was kind of out of necessity that I was getting frustrated with not being able to reach out to the youngsters. And frankly, even the older generation is now getting hooked to WhatsApp or other social media. That kind of made me think about it, that, if we cannot change the world's social habits, why don't we instead adopt those social habits and try to teach safety and accident prevention through these mediums? And that was why we kind of started researching about what are the best methods that people of the future are going to learn from, and came to the conclusion that bite sized learning or micro learning, games for learning, and doing things in virtual reality are kind of the new mediums through which education and learning can happen. And that was kind of the birth of MarinePALS after leaving Anglo Eastern.
So looking at the clear advantages there, and certainly in keeping with the way that we are really all of us adapting in the way that we look at media, but it's obviously there to meet the challenges and maybe the areas that weren't being met as far as training is concerned in the past. I mean, when you're dealing with young people and you're looking to train them and bring them up to standard and bring them above what we regard as competency levels. What were the challenges that owners and managers were facing? I mean, was it very much a sort of training was seen as a tick box type of environment? It's the people being trained and being educated, where we're seeing it very much as a chore as opposed to something that they really wanted to do. So talk to me about how that whole process has evolved to actually, to the level where now you have these sort of solutions in place.
Yeah, so e-learning kind of started, I would say 15 years ago, or more than that, 2006, when we did our first learning management system. At that time, e-learning was kind of more text based with videos inserted in it, but long courses kind of a format. And that was moving along, getting adopted at a slow pace. Uh, but COVID kind of changed that, and COVID forced us to do things more online because of not being able to bring people into classrooms. And while at that time it was a necessity, it kind of became clear to everybody that there is a good amount of, let's say, advantages of having these other mediums of learning. So while we can, webinars are very popular now, and but I think there is a economics of bringing people into classrooms and having flight tickets and hotels, etc. That's one of the things that why online training or e-learning was successful. But I think what also had to change was that e-learning in the old style did not suit the youngsters. If you give an e-learning program today, which is 2 hour or 1 hour continuous reading of text and answering some multiple choice questions after that, that is kind of considered boring by most of the students now across all industries. And that is where the bite-sized learning research helped. And it has been proven that bite-sized learning, or breaking something into smaller bites of learning, is actually 20% more effective than teaching people in the traditional way. So it is very much backed by research that the human brain uh, can absorb much better if it is done in small bites, and it can be repeated. Uh, the longer courses do not lend themselves well to somebody actually going and redoing a course which is 1 hour long or 2 hours long. And whereas if it is in a, let's say, a 7-minute video, which is what we do, then there is a good chance that just before doing a particular task, someone might actually go around and look at that video. So we do two kinds: less than a minute and less than 7 minutes. The less than a minute is kind of to appeal to the Instagram users with the reels or YouTube shorts, or the 60-second news. I mean, if you notice, Euronews is gone away from the long discussions, and all of their news is now kind of in less than a minute. It's a headline and it's a few pictures, and they move on to the next one. So I'm pretty much adopting the same principles, but for safety training, as people are using for news channels, etc. And it is backed by research that it is more effective, and hence the adoption of bite-sized learning. The reason for evolving into games is that if you ask most people, as you mentioned, it would be a tick box exercise, or oh, we have to do this training because the company is forcing us to do it. I wanted to take away that mental block towards looking at training as something of a chore. What I think is, what do we learn best? I mean, if let's say if we are fond of baking, we would probably spend hours looking through YouTube channels for the right recipe to bake the cake of our choice. So people learn according to their interests, and they are willing to do a lot more if it is not accompanied, if the learning is not accompanied by multiple choice question test after everything. We are learning every day of our lives. We do not get examined for everything that we learned. I mean, if you're a married person, that you do know that if you leave your shoes around under the sofa, your wife is going to tell you to put it in the right place, right? There's no
Yeah.
examination to learn that, but a repeated pointing out twice, and then you remember to do it, right? Because you know that it's the right thing to do. So similarly, by bringing some fun into learning, by making games for learning, I believe we can engage the student far more than we can with forcing them to do 1 hour or 2 hour long traditional e-learning courses.
And I think
So
actually,
hope that answers.
Captain, when you look at these sort of 1 minute reels that we see on Instagram and on Facebook and what have you, they're very compelling. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They take you along with it, and then even that sort of 7 minute um, snippet there that you're talking about there, where you're actually maybe concentrating on an area. Is that enough time to cover the particular subject matter? Or is it, I suppose, coming down into those bite-sized chunks, isn't it? When you're looking specifically at one area, and 7 minutes is enough for that.
No, sometimes it is not enough, but then you adopt the same logic as a Netflix 6 episode and 8 episode series. So
Yeah.
you can still cover the topic with a number of 7 minute videos. Typically, most topics would get covered in two, maximum of 3 episodes, you could say. So, like we've done something on anchoring and deep water anchoring, and that could be, one video of 20 minutes, or it can be two videos of 7 minutes each. So, there is obviously a need that if something needs a lot of teaching, then it cannot be covered in 7 minutes. But it works very well for Netflix, right? We typically binge watch things that we like. So, similarly, in the safety training, if we make the content engaging, quite likely the student will immediately go and see the next episode. So, I mean, if deep water
Yeah.
anchoring follows immediately after anchoring, chances are that they will voluntarily immediately look at it. But if they are busy, they can still come back and look at it later without ever losing it. Same as a Netflix series, right? You stop at any time, start any time, and if you're interested, you binge watch.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a very, very fair point, and I think it is about changing that mindset and really disrupting in a very positive way the sort of traditional way that we've been looking at training within the maritime sector. And then when you come onto the gaming side and gamifying training, I think you're then into a different sphere as well, where you are making it fun. And when you make it fun, people do actually absorb what they're learning.
Yes, very much so. And the third kind of pillar of what we are doing is the virtual reality programs. And I know there is mixed reality and augmented reality, etc. But this is a medium that's still pretty much in infancy, and it has a little bit of a economic barrier that each of these glasses costs you good 650 US or something. So we have started in that field also. There is no one single formula that works for education and training. It's got to be a combination of various things. There will be topics for which we will continue to do classroom based teaching. There will be topics that work very well on a game or in a short video, but there will also be topics where the realism of being in a particular space teaches much better than any of the other formats. So, in virtual reality, for example, if you have to teach somebody what the inside of a ship's tank looks like, you have the option of making them do 3D sketches and explaining the construction of the tank internals through sketches, which is how we learned 30-40 years ago. But today we just scan the space with a virtual reality camera, and we tell the student to just walk around inside the tank, and we insert the learning points of familiarization or looking for defects or whatever be the learning outcomes that you're looking for, by actually being in that space. So that realism that comes in of being in the space, I mean, that is irreplaceable by video or classroom based teaching. I mean, imagine if we were to do a virtual reality tour of the International Space Station versus telling a student
Yeah.
that there are astronauts and they live out there, and then it's in the
Yeah.
imagination of the student. But if you transport them into that world through this virtual reality, it completely changes the absorption and understanding of the student.
Yeah. And when you're talking to the students, I mean, what is their feedback on what you're offering there through MarinePALS? I mean, presumably you're getting a very more of a sort of positive reaction from them.
Yes, we have a feedback mechanism after each and every learning content that the student finishes, and it's usually 99 or 100% of the people are loving it. And it's unanimous across nationalities, across ages, across ranks. It's, I mean, I've yet to have someone saying that, no, this is not the way I wanted to learn this topic. Invariably, the feedback is that, yes, this is the future. We're kind of bored of, coming into classrooms for things for which we don't need to. I'm still an advocate of bringing people into a classroom or in an online classroom. In on a Zoom, you can bring in as many people as you want, or one of these platforms, where there are two distinct points of opinion about a particular topic, and both could be right or wrong depending upon the subject. Then a peer-to-peer discussion is a good way of learning, and we have tried to recreate that in our mentoring platform, whereby people get connected outside of the reporting through the master channel, where you can choose your mentor, you can choose your group of people with whom you want to discuss something, and then have a free for all discussion. I mean, the only difference is that instead of having a beer afterwards together, you end up with the online session
Yeah.
without being able to go. So you have to, uh, drink your beers next to your computer, saying cheers to the others in the group, which is not the same as being next to each other, but it's a pretty close thing together, and it makes it easier to interact across nationalities, shipping being such an international thing. So, I mean, if you have, let's say, Ukrainian crew, Indian crew, Filipino crew, British crew, and how do you bring these people together? Which place would you bring them to for a seminar or a conference? It's always a challenge. But if you create that same kind of environment on an online situation in this mentoring platform of ours, then you could have this interaction and different viewpoints. I mean, to give you an example, there is a kind of a general, let's say, belief that there is too much of a hierarchy of distance in Eastern crews, meaning Indian, Filipino, etc. And whereas the Western crew, the distance between the ranks is not much. And this has been debated in ship simulator classrooms for many years, power distance. But the reality is actually quite different if you put the people together. like many ships are crewed by multinational crews. And you will find that a seafarer is a seafarer, and it really doesn't matter about its good behavior versus undesired behavior. So a captain of any nationality that does not allow good feedback to be given on the bridge during navigation is not successful, irrespective of the nationality he or she sails with. So in
Yeah.
such cases where there is a different viewpoint, cultural differences, a good discussion is warranted. And I wouldn't kind of put this into a little video and expect people to understand the nuances of cultural relationships.
Yeah. And I think this whole issue of mentoring is such an important element there, and as we all do every day, we learn from others around us, irrespective of what we're doing, and we feed that off, and that's a very, very effective way. What about digital record books? Because these are important, aren't they? As well, whether they're all their sort of training elements. How do you sort of keep these up to date, and how is that all done?
Okay, so the problem statement here is that the IMO requirements or each country's requirements require a cadet, a trainee, to have a record book. Most of them have been published by the International Chamber of Shipping and by Global Met. And on each of the tasks, the chief officer or the second engineer or the ETO has to sign off for the trainee that they are competent in that particular task. However, the regulations do not require any underpinning knowledge to be learned. It's kind of assumed that this is on the job training, and people on board will teach whatever is required to make the trainee competent in that particular task. The reality of the world is that people do not either have the time, because the number of people on board is bare minimum scales, and the other one is that the trade of the vessel, say, take for example a chemical tanker running around in the North Sea, people don't even have enough time to sleep on those ships. So the chances of them mentoring and teaching the cadets what they require to become competent in a particular task is very difficult to achieve. So what we decided in MarinePALS was that we will give the learning content for each and every task to the cadets so that they can learn it on their own, and the limited time that is then available on a ship can be spent by the student of asking questions of the chief officer or second engineer with respect to the doubts about whatever they are learning. And this has been very successful because the students, the chief officer who doesn't have the time, or the second engineer, now does not need to sit with them, or the old style of learning, okay, find out this and come to me tomorrow and we'll discuss it. That's been replaced by go ahead and do the task on your online learning platform, on the cadet learning platform, and then if you have any doubts, we'll discuss it tomorrow. So typically the way it works in practice is that every Sunday or Saturday, the chief officer or the second engineer will typically discuss the record book tasks with the trainee, and that
Yeah.
has helped in improving the learning of the cadets.
Right. Looking really forward now, just finally, and it's been fascinating getting your perspective on the industry so far. Um, Shipping is changing. All of our perspectives are changing. The world is becoming more intertwined with technology and AI and all of these elements. How do you, and if we were sitting down in 2 or 3 years' time, Captain, what would you be telling me as to how the industry and the training, the development and the delivery of training has altered? Because it very much looks like you're at the forefront of this and what you're doing, and what is going to be on your dashboard, do you think, over the next 2 to 3 years at MarinePALS?
I think one is about giving content in an engaging manner, which is where the differentiation will happen between the different vendors involved in making or creating training for the shipping industry. And the second challenge actually falls more into the implementation part, and that's where the data analytics now plays a major part. I mean, earlier on, a training manager would send some learning content to the ship, but he had no means to kind of slice and dice the data to know how many people did that training, did they do it in the assigned time or not, and what was their scores with respect to the assessments, and how does that compare with crew from different nationalities, or how does the same topic being looked at by seniors and juniors, what is the different, are there different reactions to it? By combining data analytics, and I know I have not used the favorite buzzwords of today, artificial intelligence, until now, because I genuinely feel that for that part, we are at the infancy of AI industry, and we are going to all learn from it, and education is going to get affected by it. But the data analytics part is quite advanced in all industries. And in shipping, I would say it's coming in into the training industry. And giving that kind of a dashboard to the individual training managers to be able to quickly at a glance see the implementation of their efforts, I think is going to be the way it will evolve in the next couple of years. Companies who have a good platform and who are able to uh, give good learning content and good analytics together with it will be the ones that people will, I think, prefer. And we have the advantage as a very young company, just 10 months old, that we could start in the world of technology today, whereas some of our competitors who started 30 years ago, uh, would would have to change their legacy systems, and they would also need to catch up on modern data tools. So I believe in 2 to 3 years time there will be a lot of focus on such platforms, because with all these alternate fuels and everything coming into place, the need for more and more training is well recognized. There are 800,000 people who need to be trained for alternate fuels, to manage the alternate fuels. And there's no way that you can bring in 800,000 people into classrooms in 1 or 2 years. And hence, I think all companies will adopt a blended learning approach and try to do a lot of things which can be done online through platform like MarinePALS.
Fascinating stuff there, Captain, and certainly an exciting future ahead for training and learning. And the industry is going to be adapting very, very quickly to, and really, it's so interesting to see your perspective on how things are going to be changing. Thank you very, very much indeed for your time today. It's been fascinating talking to you, and we look forward to catching up with you again. Really, just to sort of see how things have been developing. But Captain, thank you very much indeed for your time today on the podcast.
Thank you, Sean, for having me on your podcast. Thank you very much.